Welcome to Chapters of Legend, a podcast for people who love to slow down, read deeply, and get lost in great stories. My name is Stavros Savrulius, and each week we'll explore a new chapter, unpacking the characters, the craft, and little moments that turn pages into legends. This season, we're diving into Jade City, so grab your tea, find your reading nook, and let's begin the next chapter together. Chapters of Legend, Season 1, Episode 4, Backups, Backdoors, and Blood. So holy cow, we've got it. We've got the catalyst. This set of chapters, I think, has got to be the craziest set of chapters that we've had thus far. Just so much happens in these chapters. It is insane. We'll go through it here. Before we do, a bit of a recap of what's happened so far. Basically, in the last set of chapters, Onden was captured by the mountain and meets Aitmata, the pillar of the mountain clan, where she basically offers him a job, let's say, and sends a message back to Lan through Onden. And basically the message is, hey, we want you to join us on this production of SN1 in Yucatan, and we want Onden to be kind of the intermediary between the two, and also, added bonus, we don't like Kilo, get rid of him, we don't like him. And I absolutely hated that. I hated that they put that in there, and they know that they can't put that in there, that there's no way Lan's going to go for it. But they're putting that in there, so that's part of what's happening right there. And at kind of the end of the last couple of chapters is where we find out that Lan is actually starting to doubt, well, he's been doubting Doru for a while, but now he's starting to take moves into trying to figure out what's going on with Doru and if something shady is actually happening. And so that's kind of where we finished off the last set of chapters here, and we're jumping straight into Chapter 14, Gold and Jade. This chapter was a really cool chapter for a couple of reasons. One, I really like how Lan is bringing in his friend Woon to try and figure out whether or not he would be a good replacement as Weatherman, because Lan is pretty much dead set that he does not want Doru as Weatherman anymore, and he basically says, like, within the year he wants Doru out. So Lan is full steam ahead, like, let's get Doru out of here. And so he brings Woon along to this meeting with a Chancellor San, to basically try and figure out, okay, how is he going to handle the situation? What is he going to say? Let's give him a little bit of a test. Let's pressure test him a little bit here. And so they go to the Temple District, and I really like the way that it's described here, and especially there's this statue at the front of the Temple District as they're walking up to this building, and it's described as the Warrior's Memorial. Was a pair of large bronze statues. The smaller one was of a boy holding up a lantern, presumably illuminating the face of the other statue, a nameless green-bone warrior who knelt in front of the child. It looked as if the man had come across the child alone and was kneeling down to bring him to safety. Or it might have been the child that had come across the warrior, bereft in the darkness, and was holding out the lantern to light his way. Either interpretation would be suitably nationalistic. The inscription on the base of the monument read, "Out of darkness, in memory of the mountain men who fought for Kakan's freedom, and the brave citizens who aided them." Just an awesome inscription, and really cool description of the statue, and again, just like really highlights the way and the weight of all this. We find out that the Shatarians had basically taken control of Kakan and had been in control of Kakan for 50 years, or over 50 years, and that they were just really, trying to settle it, basically. So really cool. I really like how we're kind of going in here. We meet Chancellor San, and we find out that Lan is here, and he has a really important request of great concern. And I'm kind of left, oh, what's happening? And then we jump back into the past, and we actually get to meet Koldu a little bit. We get to meet Lan and Hilo and Shay's father. And this was such a cute little interlude in this chapter where we get to go back and find out a bit more about Koldu and who he was as a person, as a greenbone, and we get to learn a little bit about Gold and Jade, the name of the chapter, and how Gold and Jade never together. And this is like a classic catchphrase, a classic thing that's said in Kakan, a classic idiom. And it's kind of meant to highlight greed and excess and how you shouldn't be doing it. And some examples here are where, Lan says he wants a sweet bun as a child, right after having a custard tart, and they say, what, don't have Gold and Jade together. It's kind of like that kind of thing. And I really like the way it was described here. Just really, really nice. And again, I really liked Poldu in this chapter. He just comes off as obviously a very fierce warrior, but somebody who actually clearly loved his kids, just maybe didn't know exactly how to connect with them in a really good way, but he really loved them. I think that to me came across like so clear within this chapter. There's one like really cute moment between Lan and his father here, where basically Lan's father says, "Good," said his father, his arms still tight around Lan's shoulders. "You needn't be. Some people are meant to carry Jade, and some aren't. You are, and so's your little brother, and same as your da and granda. Here, hold the talon knife. Don't you have one of your own yet? Gods, you should. I ought to have seen that already. Go on. It's only a few stones. It won't hurt." And he basically gives Lan his talon knife to hold that has Jade inside. And it's the first time that Lan feels the buzz in his chest and the warmth of the Jade coursing through him. And just really cute. I just really like that moment. I thought it was cute. I liked that that Kaldu was like, "Oh man, I haven't done this for you yet. I'm losing it," right? He's obviously in the middle of a war here. Yeah, just a really, really nice interlude and a nice way to kind of highlight a bit more about Greenbone culture, a bit more of Kakan culture, highlighting the gold and Jade bit here. And obviously we're jumping straight into that, but from right after that, so this little interlude happens, and Lan comes back and he basically asks Chancellor San to put into place a law that prevents majority shareholder status of the Kakan Jade Alliance by any one clan. And he's really trying to basically intercept the mountain here. So we find out that the mountain owns 39% of the KJA, and that 35% is owned by the No Peak clan, and that the rest is kind of divided evenly among the minor clans. And so already, the mountain almost has 40%, more than the No Peak clan. And that's after they've absorbed about 3% from the Three Run clan that they basically killed off. So really interesting here that Lan is trying to kind of play these moves, try and kind of circumvent the mountain here in a really, I think, a really smart way, basically trying to stop them. And a couple things happen here in quick succession. First of all, basically Chancellor San is trying to strong arm, right? Like he's going to ask for something from Lan here, and he first starts off by saying that his family and several others asked for assistance from the Horn of the No Peak clan and were not granted it. And we find out that when he asked for assistance, at first I was like, oh no, did Hilo mess up? Like, this is not going to help his case, right, with the Mountain Clan. And I just love Hilo. Like, I'm Hilo's number one fan right now, and I don't want any slander against Hilo. But, hearing things, I'm like, oh shoot, did he mess up? And you find out, nope, he didn't mess up. Again, Hilo's got things down, man. He's doing things right. Basically, you find out that there was a strike on the docks that were preventing things from coming in because the dock workers were striking. And you find out that, well, if Hilo were to go and help the people trying to do that and stop the strike, all the strike members and union members of the strike are also paying tribute to the No Peak clan. And so they can't be seen to take sides. This is something that they have to figure out on their own. And again, it just really nicely, I think Hilo is so smart. I think he is doing everything he needs to be doing exactly right. Obviously, again, I'm a little bit biased right now, but I really like him. And so basically Lan gives Woon the opportunity here, after hearing Chancellor San out a little bit, and say, okay, Woon, like, what do you think? What should we do? And so smart the way that Woon kind of goes here. And so he says, Chancellor, I understand that some industries, textiles, garments, for example, are facing stiff competition from foreign imports. Perhaps a clan-enforced tariff at a point of entry would help the level the playing field for Kekanese producers. And he's basically kind of extending this arm here to Chancellor San, whose family runs a textile and garment business, to say, we're going to kind of help prioritize you guys by helping push away or make it more difficult for foreign imports to come in. Really smart way to do that. And it's a benefit. It's a win-win-win. If they're taxing the foreign imports, that means a bit more money for the clan, for the No Peak clan. And it's something that the Lantern Men are going to like, and that Chancellor San likes. Just really smart. I think Woon really highlighted his ability here, and at least based off that one interaction, I think would be a great weatherman. But we'll see what happens. Jumping into chapter 15, a couple of chapters here that move by pretty quickly. Chapter 15, you see Hilo and the Make brothers going in and interacting with this motorcycle gang called the Chrome Demons. And basically what Hilo's trying to do here is insert a little bit of authority, but also insert a kind of a little bit of chaos and subterfuge, kind of like undermining a little bit of what Lan has said. So Lan basically told Hilo in the last chapters, we cannot antagonize the mountain, right? So no more killing, nothing going on. We cannot antagonize them. And so Hilo kind of says, okay, sure, I won't antagonize them. Doesn't mean other people can't. And he goes in to the Chrome Demons, basically kind of like a big just show of force here, and really kind of says, listen, this was going to happen. There's been an uptick in crime. I don't want that happening in No Peak territory. But hey, if that happens in the mountain territory, not my business. You guys do what you need to do over there. And kind of like points him in that direction. He also, though, so that's, step one, part one of this plan is this. Part two, though, is he wants to find Temben. He knows Temben works for the mountain, and he is like, I'm finding this guy. And so he basically tells the bikers, listen, first of all, go cause some shit over in the mountain territory, leave the No Peak territory alone. Secondly, if you guys can find me Temben, I'll be real pleased with you. And so goes through, does this. He does say at one point, and again, Hilo's great, man. At some point, as they're trying to show this show of force here, Miktar at some point forces one of the guys to say, you got to kneel when you're talking to the horn. And Hilo basically said, in his inner monologue, he goes, Hilo thought the last bit was unnecessary. The gang leader was resentful and cowed already, and as much as Hilo appreciated the younger make's fervent nature, Tar's excitable cruelty detracted rather than added to the impact of the horn's words. Again, I like it. Hilo, he just wants to do just enough. He's not brutal for brutal's sake. He's happy to be brutal, and he likes it if he needs to be. But it's not just for brutal's sake, and I like that. I like that he's calculated, he's smart. Just, man, love Hilo. Love Hilo. So he sets the Chrome Demons off, and hopefully in hopes of finding more information about Temben. And we're just getting the whole siblings here, right? We're jumping from sibling to sibling to sibling. Now we're in Shay's perspective. And I really found as I was reading Shay's chapter here, so chapter 16, The Jade Mine, I really enjoy the way that her chapters are written. Just from her perspective, I don't know, the prose that Fonderly uses, I really like it. I think you can really, it's distinctive when you're in each character's kind of point of view a little bit. It's a distinctive way to kind of see what's going on here. So there's this one section I really liked that just prose was so good. So Shay's on her way to the Jade Mines, which was like far away from Janloon, and she's been taking all these routes together, and it says, each step of Shay's 2-day journey had been taken by progressively slower means. First, the city subway to Grand Island Station. Then, the long bus ride out of Janloon to the predominantly Abuke town of Pula. Then, the hired truck, and now the last bit covered on foot, each squelching step taking her a little closer to the source of Jade itself. Just cute. I just liked it. Like, just, again, it's so good, and it's highlighting, right as she's walking through the forest, she's kind of saying to herself, man, this is why I wanted to come back to Kekon. Because of the nature and everything. It's so nice. This is why this place is my home. And she feels to herself like she's happy she agreed to go help Lan and go look at the Jade Mine and figure things out and figure out what's going on here. And so she does, she gets there. And first of all, she's pretty impressed. She's not seen this before. She's like, wow, this is quite the operation here. And immediately as she's walking around, she's getting a tour from the foreman of the mine. She's feeling this pull of jade. And she's feeling like, I'm so happy I'm not wearing any jade right now, because if I was, it would be crazy. I would get like this. It would just be way, way too much. And as she walks around, she kind of gets to get a bit closer and see what's happening here. And as we're in this chapter, I think we learn a lot about kind of like Kekonese folklore, I guess. So we learn a little bit about the first mother, the goddess first mother, Kianla, who the old Ibuki think fell into the sea and basically perished after the creation of the world, and her body becomes the island of Kekon, and the veins of jade that are under the mountain were actually her bones, her green bones, which really cute. Love that little piece of history, piece of kind of folklore and myth. And we learn a bit more of that here, because as we kind of continue on, we're learning that the Ibuki are obviously the people that are mining the jade, because anybody else would be at like huge risk of basically going crazy, because if you're touching this much jade, it's just going to go and flow through your body, and if you're not immune to it, you can't basically do it. And there's this kind of sad moment here for the Ibuki people, because we basically find out, and we hear like the Ibuki had inhabited Kekon centuries before the first arrival of settlers from Tun. So in truth, they were the survivors. But ironic then that now the more fortunate Abuke, such as those ones working for the Kick on Jade Alliance, performing back-breaking labor in order to drink and gamble and whore away their earnings during the idle 3-month height of the rainy season, while the less fortunate of their kin squatted in ramshackle huts by the river and dove for runoff. And it's just like, it just feels so kind of slimy. There's like these indigenous, basically, people, right, of the island, the Abuke, that are just, almost treated like dogs, right? Like, hey, you guys aren't affected by jade, so you're going to mine the jade. And that's effectively like all they do is mine the jade. Or go swimming in the river trying to find runoff from the jade mine. Just pretty sad stuff there. But as you can continue on, basically Shay's figuring out a little bit more about what's going on and looking through the files, looking through things. And again, we're learning a bit more about folklore here, so I'm going to read this other paragraph because I really liked, again, learning a bit more about how jade is viewed by different cultures. Traditional Abuke folklore connected jade to the First Mother and the creation of the world. The deists believed it was a divine gift from the gods, the path to human salvation. Some foreign religions said it was an evil substance from the devil, a belief the Shatarians had forcibly espoused during their decades of rule. Jade was imbued with so much myth and emotion, so much mystery and power. And yet, here it was, boring. Something to be dug up, cut up, moved, carved, polished, sold for profit. Really interesting how different people with different interests and goals can view something in such a different way. And so you find a little bit more here. This next section of this chapter, before we find out what's going on at the actual mine, just makes me sick. So we basically find out that while she was in school, she's basically getting mentored by Doru as the weatherman in order to kind of like set her up to be the next weatherman, which I thought was a really clear pathway, especially she studied business. And so, in the last couple of chapters when we were looking at Woon as a potential for future weatherman, my first thought was, well, I feel like Shay would be a great bet, but Shay doesn't want to be involved in clan business, so I guess not. But she was clearly being groomed towards that. She was being prepared towards being the weatherman until she decides she doesn't want to be associated with Doru in any possible way. And we find out just why she despises him so much. And man, if we didn't have enough to not like Doru already, well, we fucking get it right now. We learned that Shay had this friend in school that was in school with her, Paya. And Paya would come down by the house. They would study together, all these things. And one day, she's not even sure what she was looking for, but she was looking for something, and she was looking into Doru's desks, where she finds pretty Paya in her underwear. Paya on her hands and knees, wearing a dog collar. Paya naked, legs spread, pale and awkward, looking, eyes moist. Just all these photos of her friend being forced to do things. And she basically says to Shay when she's confronted and says, "You're not going by my house anymore," she says, "I had to. He was being good. The weatherman was being good to my father's business, and I felt like I had to do it." And just like, what a fucking disgusting pig Doru is, man. It wasn't enough that he was an annoying old man. Now he's doing this. Like, absolutely unbelievable. Just absolutely unbelievable. And to push it further here, you find out that Cole Sen effectively knew this was happening. And he says to Shay, "Be reasonable, Shay sir. Every man has weaknesses. You don't know what they did to Doru Jem during the war. He was never treated you with any disrespect." And that's it right there. They don't care about other people, only about themselves. And Cole Sen, the fact that he knows about this, Shay says it herself that it kind of wrecked her relationship with her grandfather too, because her finding out that he knew and that he was basically complacent in this happening. Oh, man. I really wonder if Lan knows this happened. I kind of doubt it, but I don't know, man. It is atrocious. Just absolutely atrocious. I absolutely hate it. Continuing on to the actual, what's happening in this story, the actual story part of this now is, Shay finds out that the mountain, in particular, Gaunt, the horn of the mountain, purchased a whole ton of large vehicles for the KJA. And she's not sure who would have basically said yes to this, because the weathermen basically have to kind of say yes to this. So either Doru did, or Ritura, the weatherman for the mountain, did, or they both did. And if that happened, and Gaunt's signatures are on these papers and on these documents, and somehow Lan doesn't know, that is not good. And so basically Shay sets off to figure out exactly what's happening and to get in touch with Lan ASAP. So the next chapter, chapter 17, Night of the Lilac Divine, is a kind of a nice little interlude chapter. Well, I shouldn't call it that because there is an actual interlude chapter coming up. But this is a nice little slower chapter here where we're learning a bit more about Lan and his kind of mindset about things. And so we find out here that he often goes to the Lilac Divine Gentlemen's Club alone, without any bodyguards, any accompaniment. He almost always has at least 2 bodyguards with him, but he goes here absolutely alone. And it's basically the one place he can go where he doesn't think about being the pillar of the No Peak clan. And he's able to just go and be himself. And it's a really nice sentiment here that it's just funny. I mean, I studied a bit of mafia stuff within school, and this kind of stuff is actually true, and it's kind of funny how it's actually works out. So there's this paragraph here where it describes Greenbones could take credit for certain things, Lan figured. On the whole, Janloon was one of the safest cities in the world. The clans kept out foreign criminals and gangsters, stamped down street crime, and taxed and controlled vice at a level acceptable to the politicians and the public. And I just really like that. I like that even though it's kind of corrupt and it's not great, the clans also help make the city safe, and that's kind of neat in the same way as well. So we find out that Lan comes to this place pretty often by himself, and he's often listening to this woman Uni sing, play the harp, and sometimes other things, which we'll get to in a second here. But just he's like enjoying himself. He's able to kind of let himself go, and again, not necessarily think about being the pillar of the No Peak clan. And you find out that, he's been trying to do this ever since his fiancée or wife, Amy, left. And just to make matters worse here, we just found out some pretty gross stuff about Doru. Apparently Doru had suggested a few things to Lan that made him shudder at the whole idea of what he could do to get the idea of Amy out of his mind. Oh man, I hate Doru so much, and I cannot wait for something bad to happen to him, which I really hope it does soon. But you find out that in this chapter, it's basically been 2 months since he sent Shay out to the Jade mine. So it's been about 2 months since the past chapter here. A lot of time has passed. And he's sitting here waiting to kind of figure out what's going on, and he's heard a bit from Shay, but he's not sure what to make of it, right? He does find out, so as he's here, sitting here, right, he's sitting with Uni, she's singing, and he's just thinking about all the different things going on in his head and in the clan. And at some point, he's thinking about Hilo. And he believed that he made the correct choice in not, taking Hilo away from being the horn. And I'm just like, I just can't take this Hilo slander. And he says it right here, right? Perhaps it would be better to have a horn that was more prudent and restrained, who wouldn't raise overflowing tensions even further. But he also says, the fists of No Peak, and by extension the fingers, weren't just loyal to the clan or to the office of the horn. They were loyal to Call Hilo. And there it is, right? Hilo clearly inspires such loyalty that at some point a little bit further here, Lan even thinks to himself, he's not even sure where they would go if there was something that would happen between Hilo and Lan. If his fingers and fists that theoretically report to the pillar and report to the No Peak clan, if they would follow him or if they would follow Hilo. So just really tricky here, really tricky to see what's going on. And you find out a bit more about Lan's inner dialogue here, because he stands up, looks into the mirror, and he can't help himself but wondering if he's anything like his father. And he just has this continuous dialogue in his head of, will he ever be good enough? I'm sure not helped by the fact that Kol Sen literally tells him you're not like your father, you're worse than your father, over and over again. We've seen that happen. He takes off some of his jade, puts it in a locked up safe in the room in order to try and protect Uni. Again, so sweet. Lan and Hilo, for that matter, they're both really sweet when it comes to the women that they care about and the people that they care about. And basically he lays down and Uni starts to massage him, and they're just kind of in this nice soft moment, I guess, right? They're just kind of there for each other. And in this, Lan's getting massaged, and he's thinking about a call that he had with Shay, where, and this is, I think, a really key moment here, and you find out exactly what Lan is now planning. 3 weeks had passed before Shay had called him again. And when she did, she said, I've gone through these numbers over and over, and it looks like as though the equipment and purchases gone to approved aren't being reflected in the KJ's financial statements. The Mountain has been getting involved in the mines directly without consulting the board of the KJA. And there it is. That's what she's trying to do, and that's what she's trying to find, and that's what Lan is trying to prevent by going to Counselor Sun and trying to prevent this. So it's all there. Like, everything is going on is happening. And he says it right there, like, if he confronted his old advisor, if he confronted Doru, he would deny any subterfuge, he would deny any negligence, and he would go straight to call Sen for support. And again, that's it. That's why we can't have Doru here. Well, I mean, let's get this straight. First reason, because he's a disgusting pig. Second reason, because of things like this. He's always going to go over Lan's head, always going to go to call Sen, and I just can't have it. I hate Doru. And so basically you find out that Lan is continuing to ask Shay to look into this a bit more, and he's just waiting for the final little piece of evidence that ties Doru to all of this. And the second that it does, he's basically going to, bang, kick him out, get Woon in, and there's not going to be any transition period. So Woon has to be ready to go on the fly at a moment's notice. Big play in stores from Lan here when this goes on. We continue on, and let's just say that a little bit more than singing and massaging begins to happen here for Lan, and yeah, that'll get your man off of things, that's for sure. But I did say here that, you know, let's just say that Lan gets some satisfaction, and unfortunately, Uni doesn't, and he just doesn't do anything for her, and that kind of sucks, man. Like, she's helping you. I mean, help her too. Anyways, right at the end of this chapter, I absolutely lost it, and I immediately had to fly through. I was so happy this was not the last chapter of this set of chapters, because if it had been, oh my god, what a cliffhanger. You find out early in the chapter that Lan never gets disturbed when he's here. He's always here and able to have just a peaceful time by himself or with Uni, and he's getting a knock on the door. He's like, what's going on? And at first, Uni gets up to go and do it, and he says, no, let me. He puts back on all of his jade from the safe. One thing that I didn't like is that he put in the combination and failed for the first time. He had to put it in twice before the lock actually opened. A bit worried about that. That could be a problem in the future. He gets on his jade again. He feels all the energy coursing through him. He opens the door. None other than Mick Ken is there waiting for him, breathing hard, enraged, tan jacket splattered with blood, that it was not his own. And he says, the mountain did it. They whispered Hilo's name. At the end of this chapter, I was freaking out. I was like, no way. Oh my god, this is crazy. And thank God it was not the last chapter of this set. But there is a little interlude chapter, the first interlude, where you find out a bit about, I don't know, some deitist kind of myths here, and again, a bit of folklore. I'll be honest, this was a cool little interlude chapter. We're learning some cute stuff about, you know, the way the deitists kind of think, and how they think that we're all children of the god, that we were fighting, and that so the gods basically put us on Earth that they have created, and well, because we were fighting, they said, nope, you know what, you're going to lose all of your god privileges, we're leaving you here, and the Jade Palace we were building for you, we're going to break it down, it's going to be buried underneath the island of Tikhon, and that's it. And so that's where Jade comes from. It was cute, I liked the polytheism, but I was also like, dude, what the fuck is happening with Hilo? I need to know what's happening with Hilo. And so thankfully, chapter 18 was the last set of this set of chapters, and we actually get to find out a bit more about what happens to him. And thank God. And so in this chapter, again, we're here, and we start off with Hilo and Wen, and basically Hilo trying to convince Wen to move in with him. Wen basically saying, nah, dude, not unless you marry me. Really cute little interaction by them. Again, I love Wen. I think she's so strong, independent. I really hope they do actually get married. And I mean, Hilo said, I'll do it, but it's going to take a while to go through Lan and get everything done. Can't you just move in with me in the meantime? And she says, nope, not until we're married, dude. And so, anyways, they're there. I hope they do get married, because that would be so, so great, and I would really love that for them. But in the meantime, we find out that there's been this basically break-in that's happened at this grocery store in the armpit. And the armpit is disputed territory, which is very important for this next bit of what's going to happen here. Because Hilo goes, he talks to the owners of the grocery store, and they basically say, yep, no problem. Like, we're going to take care of this. You do not need to worry anymore. And they find out by just asking around, getting some information, that the two people who basically robbed up the grocery store told them that they didn't pay their dues to the mountain, and so they're in trouble, were Yen Ayo and Chandal. And Hilo finds out where they are. They're at this casino right now, and Hilo basically says to himself, like, listen, I need to be the person to go and take care of this, because if not me, like, I need to set an example. This can't happen. The armpit is already disputed territory. And he basically thinks to himself at some point about the armpit. He says, vibrant, noisy, colorful, and seedy. The armpit was one of Chanlun's most valuable districts. By day, it attracted tourists and shoppers. after dark, both stockbrokers and dock workers mingled in the streets, entertaining themselves with the myriad of restaurants, gambling dens, bars, strip clubs, and theaters. So the armpit is clearly this really desirable place. You need to have the influence here. Like, he cannot let the mountain take over the armpit. And so he thinks, I have to take care of this on my own. And he goes and they park out inside in front of this gambling den, and they're about to go out and basically make Ken has been a little bit sick, so he stays in the car. And I wrote, man, I think this saves his life, the fact that make Ken stay in the car. And literally like 2 sentences later, it says, Ken being left behind in the car was what saved Hilo's life. And I just laughed out loud because I'd just written down, this is, I think, what saved his life. And so you go and you find out that as Hilo and Mektar are walking towards the gambling den, 2 motorcycles race up and make Ken tries to honk on the horn, let Hilo know what's going on. And I really love this. This is so great. Again, just the connection between these three, I love. It was not the blare of noise, however, but the surge of Ken's visceral alarm that reached Hilo first. A fraction of a second before he perceived the murderous intent of the assassins as they opened fire with handguns. And basically, he was able to kind of jump out of the way, kind of get grazed a little bit, but throw up a bunch of deflection. Bullets start flying everywhere, and just basically like huge fighting starts happening. And I just, in my notes here in the book, it's just like, fuck, no, oh geez, oh yikes, there it is. And just, Hilo is basically trying to fight off 4 assassins with moon blades, and he only has a talon knife. Mektar is there. Ken is trying to get there, and just fighting. A couple of like slashes go on. Ken kind of runs in with the Duchess and runs over somebody, kind of sends them off, breaks the windshield of the dash, and it is just an absolute shit show. And right at the end, he was able to this section was crazy. Hilo's basically getting grappled. He's grappling with one of his assassins, and the Green One's aura spiked wild as he twisted in Hilo's grip, and Hilo took all of it, all the jade power he could gather, and with a sharp thrust of his palm, channeled into his opponent's heart. The assassin's steel buckled like balsa wood, and his heart spasmed and burst. Ugh! Yikes, man! Kills this guy, gets kind of blown back by the little bit of kind of blowback here, and at some point, as he's fighting, he looks into the eyes of one of his assassins and recognizes him, and it's the second fist of Gaunt Ash, Gam Oben. And so it's clear he knows the mountain set this attack. They are coming for me. And basically the whole thing lasts less than 2 minutes. They manage to kill 2 of the assassins. Gam and Chan get away. And at the end of it, basically Ken comes in, grabs his brother. His brother has been like badly injured. He's bleeding. Ken is trying to staunch the blood as much as he can and channel into him and try and give him some of his energy. And still Hilo, with all this happening around him, as like Ken is trying to take care of his brother as it's all happening, is still so clear-headed and knows, okay, this is what needs to happen. He points at 3 people, you, come here, and he tells them, listen, spread the word down the street and tell everyone you speak with to tell others. Anyone who gives me the whereabouts of the 2 men who fled here tonight is a friend of No Peak and a friend of mine. Anyone who helps them hide or hides them is the enemy of my clan and an enemy of me. He points to one of them, dead men in the street, and says, this is what happens to my enemies. Oh, man. And then he gets to work quickly. And I like this too, again, just highlighting a bit more of Greenbone culture and everything, but he gets to work quickly. They needed to get Tar to the hospital right away, but a Greenbone was entitled to the jade of slain foes and never left it behind for thieves. From the body of one man, he pulled 3 jade rings, a bracelet, and a circular pendant. From the other, he collected a belt, 2 eyebrow studs, and a jade-backed watch. He had to hack at the flesh inelegantly to get the rings and the studs. He gathered up the jade-hilted weapons that had fallen, 2 moon blades and a talon knife. He ran back to the Duchess. He threw open the door and tossed the talon knives and moon blades into the floor of the passenger seat. Keys, he demanded. And he grabs the keys, takes off with Mektar and Ken in the back, trying to stop Mektar's blood. And he just takes off. And that's where this set of chapters end. And I am just at a complete loss for words. I've been saying this for the past 3 episodes. I've been trying to establish what is it going to be, what's going to be the catalyst that's going to send things off the edge. I thought it was Onden, I thought it was the Jade Mine, and those were all little bitty pieces of what was going on, but there it is, like that. That's it. That's the catalyst. The next chapter, chapter 19, is literally called Council of War, and Holy cow, I cannot wait to see what happens here. This book has been incredible so far. Just like really, really fun to read and such an easy read. Like I'm flying through, when I'm reading these set of chapters, I'm flying through them. They've been so nice. I'm wondering if you're feeling the same way because these have been so good to read. And especially this set of chapters. Holy cow, flying through it. So excited. Oh, I can't wait to read this next set. As always, though, we're going to end off the episode with my favorite quote of this set of chapters. And this one actually comes from that little interlude that I was talking about with Koldu and Lan in that first chapter that we were in there. And Koldu says to Lan, "A man who wears the crown of a king can't wear the jade of a warrior. Gold and jade, never together. We greenbones live by Aisho. We defend the country from its enemies and the weak from the strong." And just like a beautiful quote, really to me encapsulates what Koldu was about, and especially what the revolution was about. Protecting the Kikon, fighting the strong and protecting the weak. And again, encapsulate Aisho for me. Again, that I talked in last episode about the concept of Aisho and how I really like that concept of Aisho. And that quote from Koldu really to me just like highlights it, and I love it. Gold and jade, never together. Just absolutely love it. But that is going to wrap up this set of chapters here. The next set of chapters we're going to be reading is chapters 19 to 23, and that episode will be coming out on July 15th. So read those and get caught up with us as we're going through this here. But that is the end of this chapter. Thank you for joining me on Chapters of Legend. I hope you found something new to notice, a detail to treasure, or a story thread to ponder. Until next time. If you're enjoying the journey, you can help others find the podcast by following, rating, or sharing, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can find the show everywhere at Chapters of Legend. You can email in at chapterslegend@gmail.com, and you can follow me for more random content on YouTube. Until next time, keep turning the pages, and keep living in the legend.